My name is Justine Van Bergen, and I will be talking about Chapter 5, which is Prudential Arguments for God's Existence. So the introduction is Blaise Pascal, a French physicist and philosopher, created an argument for the belief in God. Rather than giving an argument to why one should believe in God, Pascal devised an argument to why it is plausible to believe that there is a God. Even if the opinion is that all the evidence is against the existence of God, Pascal's goal was to provide individuals with prudential reasoning to make God possible. He divides his argument into two categories: God exists and God doesn't exist. If God exists and you believe that there is a God, then the payoff is infinitely positive. Or, if God exists and you do not believe in God, then the payoff is infinitely negative. Both outcomes produce results that are infinite. On the other hand, if there is no God but you believe in God, then you will receive a minor negative outcome. Or, if there is no God and you do not believe in God, then the outcome is infinitely positive. Unlike the first set of arguments, both would produce finite results. So the structure of my argument is that this is a deductively valid argument, and it is deductively valid because the argument provides all possible scenarios along with their outcomes being infinite or finite. It is an inductive argument. Premise 1. The information in Table 1 is true. Table 1 refers to the idea that I just described about if God exists or if God doesn't exist. While it is challenging to prove the existence of God while providing a philosophical argument, Pascal explains his argument using prudential reasoning. This is logical reasoning to why you should believe something, which ultimately makes you want to believe it. He demonstrates that you are better off believing in God and living your life for Him opposed to not doing so. Pascal explains that deciding to live life for God makes perfect sense as long as the likelihood of God's existence is greater than 0. Overall, the information in Table 1 is true and valid. Based on scientific reasoning, God's existence has not been disproven. As this is the case, the probability that He exists is greater than 0. Premise 2. The information in Table 1 is complete. And conclusion 1. The information in Table 1 is true, and the information in Table 1 is complete. It is true that the information in Table 1 is complete because it goes through all the options of the outcomes of believing and not believing and the amount that one would be affected. As well, even if God does not exist, the idea that you are better off as a Christian is true because believers have several areas of benefit when compared to non-believers. Firstly, it is understood that believers are happier than non-believers as they have a greater power to live for, which gives them a sense of belonging and purpose. Secondly, many believers benefit from belonging to a group of like-minded people, which gives them both support and fellowship. Thirdly, Christianity sets us on a path of goodness by stopping immoral activities and promoting the social good. Overall, the information in Table 1 is true and complete. Premise 3. If the information in Table 1 is true and the information in Table 1 is complete, then you are better off having the life of a believer and believing in the Christian God than not doing so. Conclusion 2. You are better off having the life of a believer and believing in the Christian God than not doing so. We have already established that Table 1 is true and complete. This statement is also true. You are better off living the Christian life and believing in God opposed to not believing in God. If you believe in God and God is real, then you have an infinite reward. If you believe in God and God does not exist, then you would be affected negatively, but only by a finite amount. So, even if God does not exist, you are still better off as a believer than as a non-believer. In reference to a general topic such as gambling, if the payoff is big enough, it sometimes makes sense to bet on improbable outcomes. If you give an insignificant amount of money to receive a possible significant gain, then the loss, should you not win, is of little consequence. Therefore, If the outcome of choosing option A is better than option B, then one should choose option A. The validity of this statement is accurate and gives very insightful reasoning as to why it makes sense to believe in God. Premise 4. If you are better off having the life of a believer and believing in the Christian God than not doing so, then you logically should choose the Christian kind of life and believe in God. Conclusion 3. You logically should choose the Christian kind of life and believe in God. Based on Pascal's theory, one can conclude that, in fact, it is probable of enduring a better life if you choose to believe in the Christian God rather than not. It is up to everyone to choose whether or not to believe in God. There are two possible answers, believing or not believing. Believing in God, when there is in fact a God, allows you to receive infinite happiness. Even if there is no God and you believe that there is, the outcome is negative. But the outcome is minor and finite. If that is the worst possible outcome, then why would one not choose to believe in God? Overall, all of these premises are true. They all support Pascal's theory that makes it plausible to believe that there is a God. This proves important in philosophical arguments about the existence of God and not having evidential reasoning to support a hypothesis. When looking at the totality of Pascal's theory and the validity of each premise, one can conclude that it is plausible to believe in God and that Pascal's theory provides to be a valid argument. Objection and response. Many people say that if you walk the talk of faith, then you will become a Christian. If you go to church and follow Christian rituals, some people would say that this is classified as being a true Christian. If this is so, this would then mean that they could potentially gain eternal happiness with God, even though deep down they do not believe in Him. People do this all the time. They go to church and follow rituals. However, this does not make somebody a Christian, as the Bible teaches that the core foundation of Christianity is belief that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Pascal should have taken this into consideration when formulating his theory. Pascal's theory is still valid, although it should have addressed the issue of someone acting like a Christian despite lacking genuine belief in God. Thank you.